All right, so I was just watching a an interview with a independent journalist who uh, covers a myriad of things, but one of the things that he's covered is climate catastrophe. So this is something that this is the first time I've ever heard this, but it makes perfect sense. Uh, so this journalist was talking about what was happening in the Hindu Kush, and and how there's a large confluence of rivers in the region that support for drinking water and for rivers. And so you don't generally think about the connection between glacial ice or mountain. If you have mountains or other places that have water, frozen water. So uh, what basically he was saying is that a climate scientist had stated that it wasn't 2100 that Antarctica would Antarctica would reach a crux of of impending complete destruction of the ice sheets in Antarctica, but it was actually already happening now. Now we are approaching 2020. That's 80 years in advance of 2100. That all the conservative uh, talking points. So going back to that example of the Hindu Kush, so these glacial ice sheets in the Hindu Kush supply the fresh water for the rivers and the ecosystem, as well as drinking water. Um, so it, it basically means that a large portion of the fresh water that's necessary for 1 point something billion people comes from this system of glacial sheets. Uh, Now, never mind the Hindu Kush. The Hindu Kush is already losing those glacial ice sheets, and it's gotten to a point where it has become an existential threat because of the loss, and it's disappearing at an alarming rate. Well, the same thing in Greenland, in the North Arctic, the North Pole, uh, wherever you have glacial ice sheets. Never mind the fact that the mountains, like the Rockies, won't be able to hold onto the uh, the uh, the winter to hold on to and build on the on the snowpack, which will because of the rising temperatures, it won't be able to hold on to it, and thereby won't be able to supply fresh water, which will mean that rivers, streams, and all sorts of other things that feed into the wider communities, they won't uh, they won't be able to provide this. So this is something, as I said, this is something that I had not thought of, and I tried to think crucially about this, but that's alarming. That's very alarming. That means your lakes won't get the water. It's not just coming from underground. It's coming from snowpack. So what? So that's a great example of why climate catastrophe is real. We already know that places that didn't have strong droughts in Europe and in the United States and Australia and many other places are now feeling a massive drought that aren't being corrected, and the soil and ecosystem is drying up even faster and killing off biodiversity. Now, understand that we need bacteria and viruses and other stuff like that. Well, this sort of drought actually kills off that, which in turn kills off invertebrates, which in turn kills off birds, mammals, uh, which in turn also stagnates the waterways that have aquatic life, and that in turn kills off uh, either kills off the oxygen levels or uh, produces algae and other stuff that actually other sorts of destructive algae that actually uh, overproduces oxygen or overproduces CO2 rather. So all of this has a connection, and when we're cutting down what little remains our uh, of our plant life, uh, and we're spreading out, and we're using fossil fuels, and we're dumping poisons into the ecosystem that further disrupts and kills off. Uh, I've mentioned before about the invertebrate, the amount of invertebrate that have gone extinct, and the mammals and birds and fish. Uh, so it's all interconnected. But this, I thought it was an interesting point to point out that uh, if we do not get serious, then we can just, we should all just bend over and kiss our own asses goodbye, because that's exactly what's happening, and that is the reality. And to be talking about all sorts of nonsense while there is a looming and impending uh, death, and a death that will be painful and horrifically nightmarish, doesn't seem to be all that intelligent. And so, anyways, think about it, and if you're curious about the the interview that's on Rebel HQ on TYT, and uh, check it out. The title is I think something about no ice in Antarctica or something like that. So